Last week on SAR Trail, we took all of the overlanding gear off of our Hummer and dropped it off at J&S Performance in Arvada, Colorado. I need to correct one thing that I said last week. I said that we were looking for performance gains and reliability improvements in our engine.
Real slow.
Reliability is not the right
Yep.
word. Our H3 has been very reliable. The word that I meant to use was durability. With all of the overlanding gear that we carry and the trailer that we pull in all kinds of conditions on all types of terrain, we want to increase our engine's durability because it doesn't have an easy life. So, this is the build of our Hummer H3. Through the course of this video, you will see the build evolve as we had to make decisions that guide the direction of the build. Some of the parts we speak of don't make the final build. All of the build parts will be listed at the end of this video. So let's get started. We dropped our Hummer off yesterday over at J&S Performance, and they're going to do a couple other things for us since they have to take the whole engine out for the work that they're doing on it. They're going to be taking off the catalytic converter system, they're going to be taking out the radiator, all of that stuff. So we have new catalytic converters that need to go on our H3. They've been in clogged state for a while, so we got brand new ones that we're going to put in. Just want to check them to make sure that they are in good shape. These are from Eastern Performance, and just want to make sure in shipping that there hasn't been any damage to them. And these all look good. So we have the whole catalytic converter system. The H3, the H3 has 3 catalytic converters on it. So you have the driver's side, passenger side, and I forget which side. One of those sides, I think maybe when it joins in, has a 3rd catalytic converter and then a resonator and all that stuff. So I wanted to get these done because the engine's not breathing very well. And then it's going to make it really hard for it to run a supercharger, get enough exhaust out of the engine if your catalytic converters are clogged. And then ultimately the guys at J&S are going to do a tune for us. You can do a bunch of engine modifications, especially something like a supercharger. You got to tune the engine to make sure it's running optimally, and they're not going to be able to get a good tune with clogged catalytic converters. Alright, so let's pull this one out, make sure this one's in good shape as well. And it is. We're looking good. Okay, awesome. So, yeah, that's good. So we ended up talking with and essentially interviewing a whole bunch of performance shops all around the Denver, Colorado area. Got some recommendations from some friends, anybody who's had engines built, especially guys that are like muscle car guys, guys that do quarter mile, 1/8 mile track racing. And those are the guys you want to talk to about doing engine work. You don't want to just go down to the local mechanic and have them crack open your engine. So we interviewed a bunch of places, and we ended up landing on J&S because of referrals that we got and because of just the confidence we got from them talking with them. And they know GM engines really well. And GM's different from Ford, which is different from Chrysler, and so on. So you really want somebody that specializes in your engine, your whole setup, the electronics, the airflow, the fuel management, all of that. So we got one more piece we got to look at. Well, 2 more pieces we got to look at that the J&S guys are going to do for us as well. So let's crack these open too. So there's not a whole lot exciting about replacing stock catalytic converters with, stock catalytic converters. But in this box, we have something that's really exciting. This is a custom-made radiator, built-in dual electric fans. This is from the company Entropy Corporation. We will leave their information in the description in case you guys are interested, you Hummer H3 guys, or really anybody who wants an amazing radiator. But they'll make you the radiator that you want, that you need for your application. And we found out about Entropy from Dome Life. If you're familiar with the YouTube channel Dome Life, they have a Hummer H3. I think they just converted over now to a pickup truck, but for years they used a Hummer H3 for their travels. and they started pulling a trailer. They needed to drop their temperature and whatnot, so they got an entropy radiator. I chatted with them a little bit, Cody over there, and he's turned us on to entropy. And I contacted them and had them build us a custom application for us. So let's see if we can get this guy out. And take a look at it. Alright, so we got some hoses, some electronics, all our thermostat controls for the fans. Very cool. Alright, so check this guy out. Hold on, let me get some tape. Let me undo some tape here. Alright, so check this guy out. This replaces the clutch-driven fan that the H3 comes with some seriously volume air moving fans. These things, I forget what the CMF is, but they move a tremendous amount of air. I think this radiator is rated up to 750 horsepower, which is overkill for us, which is great. I love overkill. And it's a larger than stock radiator, so it's has more core, more cooling capabilities than the stock radiator does. And look at this thing. This thing looks phenomenal. You can kind of see the thickness. If you know what your stock radiator looks like, this is definitely a bigger radiator. It is designed to fit right in the H3, so we shouldn't have any compatibility issues whatsoever with the mounts. It comes with all of the mounts. And then of course when the guys do the tune, they're going to set the thermostat for the fans. They'll kick on when they need to. And this is going to increase our cooling drastically. You guys know Hummer H3s, especially when you get on a trail, especially when it's really hot and you're doing some incline and you're crawling over things at 1 mile an hour, your engine tends to run hot. Or even if you just pull a heavy trailer over a mountain pass, your engine can tend to run a little bit on the warm side. This is going to solve all of that. You guys know we pull a trailer on trails, we pull a trailer on trails in the desert on inclines when it's hot. So this is going to solve a whole lot of problems. And to make matters better, we're adding an external transmission cooler. So this radiator, we had it built for essentially a manual transmission vehicle. So there's no automatic transmission fluid cooling involved in this radiator. So there's no lines to cap off. And then we're going to throw in this pretty much overbuilt B&M transmission cooler. Then the guys at J&S Performance are going to throw a fan on top of this as well for us. It's going to be temperature driven. Put a thermostat on it as well. So we're going to have maximum cooling for our transmission, maximum cooling for our engine, and I think we have 1 or 2 more tricks up our sleeve for engine cooling beyond this. But I think we're going to be super happy with this setup. All right, one last final thing we're bringing to the guys at J&S today is we use Royal Purple HPS 5W30. The way we landed on Royal Purple, the HPS at least, is we checked a whole bunch of third-party analysis of different oils, performance oils, synthetic oils, and they really had, from what we could find at least, the best wear protection. Some oils can give you a little bit of horsepower, but then I think you lose some wear protection. We want wear protection. We want this engine to last and last and last. And speaking of making an engine last, one of the products we really like, ProBlend ProTech, or Racing Engine. It's a lubricant, it's an oil additive. I've used this in every car that we've ever owned, and we've never had an engine go bad. They've always run really well. Very little signs of wear inside the engine. We even know of people that have run really, really long miles on an engine, had this in it with no oil. And this is all it had in it, and it went a long, long, long time before the engine showed any signs. I'm talking hundreds of miles, not years. But nonetheless, it's a product that we have tested, we have used, and we really like it. Just my 2 cents. So let's get all this stuff over to J&S and get our build happening. It's been a couple days since we've been at J&S Performance. We're back today, and we got a call from JR with some good news and some bad news. So they have the engine all torn down now, so we got to find out what the good news and the bad news is and make some decisions. So let's go on inside. All right, so if you guys remember, this is JR with J&S Performance, and this in here is what's left of the engine. JR, what do we know at this point?
So we got all tore down and clean, basically ready to go back together. We did find that the spring-loaded time chain tensioner on this is broken.
Okay.
It's very common with that tensioner design. I've seen them broken even at 50,000 miles.
Okay, cool.
The problem is to get that tensioner out, there's 2 bolts that you have to access, and they're behind the oil pump. So to do that, we have to properly pull an oil pump, you got to pull the pan.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can pinch the O-ring, the pickup tube O-ring, you know.
Okay.
So it's better to pull the pan.
Okay.
And at this point, I'd put a new oil pump on it while we're here, you know.
It just makes sense, right?
Yeah. Everything else looked okay. We did see something odd where it looked like a rocker had possibly failed on this.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have owned it since new or...
We've had it for quite a while.
Okay. It's got a bent push rod and then a rocker that looks like it kind of probably lost the trunnion bearing and then it rolled over on the valve.
Interesting.
So nothing serious, but it's something that was there that I didn't hear even when it was running. So
right.
It's
right. Okay.
Fine.
Okay.
Other than that, everything else is going smooth. No issues there. So.
Okay, and all that stuff's going to get replaced anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The new lifters and trays and everything are already in.
Nice.
The rockers, we would probably just have to replace that one.
Okay.
Which we weren't going to replace them. We usually don't if they aren't bad. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But one's not a big deal. I think they're the whole $15. So.
Was there a valve problem you were mentioning?
Yes. So let me see where he's got the cylinder heads. So this is your left-hand cylinder head here.
Okay.
All these are what a normal valve should look like, just kind of normal wear and tear on them, but you can see that one, something's rolled down on the edge of it there.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And usually what happens, this rocker was most likely a culprit.
Okay.
And it was moved to a different spot, and this also had a different gasket on it. So one of the gaskets was original, one wasn't.
So there was work done on there.
Yeah, so something's been done.
Okay.
That's one of your push rods.
Yep.
And it's bent. So the rest of them seem to be okay.
Interesting.
And then when you got it apart, this was actually moved to a different spot.
Yeah.
Funny enough. So somebody's done something, but...
Okay. Well, before we got it, somebody did something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So obviously we're upgrading valve springs at this point. At this mileage and at this point what we found, I'd like to take the heads over to machine shop.
Sure.
Probably replace that valve, had a valve job done on it.
Okay.
And then they can set up the springs while they have them and everything.
Okay.
And that's it. Other than that, nothing else.
Okay.
This is a little abnormal. The spring tensioner is more normal. We see that quite often.
Okay.
So.
Well, I mean, it's good timing that you're finding this.
Yeah. You've got some other like little broken exhaust studs. We'll pull that out while we have it.
Okay. And those kind of just from heat and whatnot.
It's very normal for those to break, especially the outers.
Okay.
A lot of times this outer and that outer will both be broken.
Okay.
Very common.
So,
this one's broken the best way it possibly could be with some sticking out.
Something sticking out, right. You
Yes.
can get a hold of. Okay, cool. Okay, and JR, can you tell me about, like I know you're putting in a new cam.
Mm-hmm.
So what's our goal with the cam? Because I know, since we're pulling a trailer, we're towing.
So we use Nick Ebdos at BTR. He's one of the guy that we used to talk to about cam grinds.
Okay.
I did talk to him about your truck. Sometimes we would do an off the shelf, but yours I wanted it semi-aggressive, like fast emissions.
Mm-hmm.
And he spec'd out a cam for us, which is actually really close, believe it or not, to a twin turbo stage 2 4.8 cam.
Interesting.
Now that sounds odd,
right? It is.
But Nick said that the valve events of that cam would work really well with the torque that you want in this setup, because everything we're trying to gear is geared toward torque and not top end power like most people.
Yep.
So that's what he spec'd for your build.
Sweet.
So
I mean, that's awesome.
it's odd. It's a twin turbo stage 2 4.8 cam, but that's what Nick wants in this setup. So.
Okay, cool. We'll trust the experts. I know I had looked at some of the off-the-shelf ones that are
Normally we would have
done
done like
trucks.
a truck one, like a stage 2 truck, or even maybe a stage 1 truck cam. But with what we wanted, that's really where he leaned towards, and I really trust his opinion. So he's done a lot for us. So.
Perfect.
So as far as cam profile, that's where that goes.
Well, awesome. So, update on like time schedule. You think parts that you're gonna need are available?
Yeah, we're not having any issues there. 9 times out, I probably have it all in stock.
Okay.
I just have to check on the oil pump. Even if I don't have that, that's 3 days out.
Okay.
And we're going to have some layover with the machine shop having the heads anyways.
Sure,
So
sure.
I anticipate them for possibly having them 3 to 5 days
Okay. Okay.
for them to do a valve job.
Okay.
And then a valve, I'm just going to get a GM valve, which probably a day out, most likely would be my guess. It's a pretty common valve. So.
Okay. Awesome. At this point, is there any benefit in porting anything or?
You could get some gains from cylinder head porting. A lot of times we use like Texas Speed. We'd send these out to Texas Speed. Turnaround on that would probably be somewhere around 2 weeks.
Okay. What kind of gains? And can we pass emissions?
It doesn't necessarily affect emissions. That's more cam related than anything, and catalytic converter and other things of that nature. But basically, it's kind of free horsepower. You're not necessarily free, but
Sure.
you're increasing flow, so you're adding power without putting more strain on anything. You know,
that's kind of a plus.
Yeah.
So we'll have to think about it. But you're thinking 2 weeks out. What kind of gain? Is it just top end power, or is it torque as well?
On a naturally aspirated car, we've seen as much as 30, 35 to the wheels, which
that's big.
Which could probably be 60-ish to the crank. You know what I mean?
Yep.
On something like yours with a blower, it may gain a little bit more than that. You may gain 40 of them. You know what I mean? It's a fairly decent gain. Yeah.
All right, so can you kind of buzz me back when you get a chance with a price on that one?
Yeah. And then another thing, when they do that CNC porting, they also do a valve job.
So just kind of
so instead of having the machine shop doing it, then they would do that at the same time.
Right.
And I'll be totally honest with you, the valve job is going to be almost half the price of the CNC work.
Okay. So if you can just give us a package price on doing the whole thing, and at this point, we'd like it. We're kind of planning our next, overlanding trip when this is done, but it's not really a rush. We want to get this done right.
Right.
And then we'll hit the trails when it's done.
Okay.
Cool. All right, it's awesome. So we didn't find any disasters.
No, nothing disastrous.
We just learned some.
No bearing material, no oil pan or anything like that. Oil pan was clean. So,
good.
I have moved the truck around a few times before I pull in the shop. It does have a little bit of piston noise, which is totally normal for these.
Okay.
Cold piston noise. They call it piston slap.
Okay.
I haven't even heard it lubricant, but I know you've said it has in the past.
That's certainly what we assumed it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little light piston noise when they're cold is pretty normal.
Okay.
For this mileage.
Warms up and then goes away.
Yeah, as it warms up, you have a little more clearance between the piston and the cylinder wall, and the piston rocks ahead. Okay. And then when it warms up, the piston expands, takes up that space, and you get quieter.
Is that something we have to address at some point?
I wouldn't necessarily worry about it right now.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to be a huge deal right now.
Maybe in another 100 or 1,000 miles or so?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, we learned some good things. We're gonna look at making some changes, maybe getting the heads ported out so we can gain a little bit of free horsepower right there. Free in that it doesn't really cost anything but dollars. And get some of those maintenance things taken care of, some of the repairs done. That engine is gonna be so awesome when it's done. So we're really getting excited now. I know we're still gonna be like a month out because we're gonna have to ship the heads to Texas. But man, I'm excited. Can't wait to get that thing with the trailer on a trail, going over mountain passes, going up steep sections with some real power. It's going to be a game changer.
Okay, so we're back at J&S Performance. It's been a few weeks since we were here and the headers have come back in. So we're going to kind of get an update and see what's going on with the engine work.
So yeah, you guys opted to port the heads. What that means is we send these out to Texas Speed. They have a porting program. You have to go in and open up the intake runners and the exhaust. It flows better. It helps flowing. With doing a supercharger, you're going to want the heads to flow. It's like a big air pump, so you're pulling in air, pushing air out as fast as possible.
Okay.
So that's going to pick up power and stuff like that.
Okay.
For the H3s.
Okay.
So.
Well, that was another thing he was asking about was the intercooler, I think, or the transcooler.
Transcooler.
Yeah, how that
would
was.
know more.
Yes, the transcooler is going to be kind of a difficult fit just because there's not really a lot of room
Okay.
up front, and knowing now that you guys are adding a hidden winch in there, that cuts our space
Down. Yeah.
down considerably.
Okay.
If you guys have, the winch already?
We do. Did you like it? To see it?
It might not be a bad idea
Okay.
to get it here so we can kind of put it up there, not mount it obviously, but see where it's gonna mount.
Okay.
So that way we can make sure that our heat exchanger and or tranny cooler, wherever we put it, is gonna clear.
Okay.
And not cause issues for you guys.
Sure. Okay.
So that's when we're getting ready to put your BTR 660 springs on.
Okay.
And you can see in here all the CNC machines marks rather than the rough cast.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we'll do is lift it up.
I got that.
Oh, it's bolted down. Okay, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
That's okay.
So you see they surfaced the head for a nice flat surface. Valves, new they grind the new valves in. And then here's some more of their CNC port work.
All right, so we are back in Colorado from our trip down into Tucson, Arizona, which was an awesome time with Doug and his family. We're coming back to check up on the Hummer, see how it's going. We know they've had a couple complications, a couple different things they got to kind of figure, because it's not just a straight bolt-on the work they're doing. There's some fabrication involved. So let's go meet up with the guys at J&S and see where we stand. All right, so you guys remember JR? Well, you're going to give us an update where we're at and got some questions. And I know you've had some challenges because this isn't all just, everything we're doing isn't all just one kit.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of pieces, like the supercharger, the radiator, the winch.
Yeah.
None of these things, it's not like you buy the whole kit. So it's a bunch of different pieces. And with wiring and hosing and plumbing, you've had some challenges. So kind of give us just a quick synopsis and then we'll look at some more detail.
Yeah, it's just trying to fit a lot of things in a tight package. You know, the blower kit started out as a Colorado V8 kit from Magnuson, which they have extremely similar engine bays, almost identical. The radiator support's a little bit different, but you know, they really could have made a Hummer kit out of this easily.
Right.
But
well, they did years ago, but when the Hummer got discontinued,
yes, they made a Radix, but they never like a 112, but they never did a TBS 1900.
Gotcha.
For some reason, they phased it out when they went to the 1900s.
Okay.
But all that's going in pretty well. A lot of the challenge has just been, you know, larger radiator. You know, they never made a kit with it, so they never figured out any of the heat exchanger mounting in the front. So we had to kind of figure that out, and it's pretty tight up here where the condenser is.
Yes.
And then we throw a hidden winch mount in the mix.
Yes.
And then that gets the winch extremely close to that. And then we're also trying to add an upgraded transmission cooler. So we're kind of out of real estate for the transmission cooler, so we may end up putting that down lower off to the side here. But
yeah, and I love both ideas. My one concern on this skid plate is we don't want to sacrifice any integrity for if we end up scraping on rocks.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a really heavy skid plate, so you know, it's built that way. So if you put it to the side, I think that solves that problem.
Yes.
But it might be better here. You know, I'm going to kind of trust your judgment on there.
I think both could work. We'll kind of figure out. I think if we end up with it in the center, the transmission cooler is going to be back quite a ways. So even if you were to hit something, I don't think you'll get into the cooler.
Okay.
And then I think, like you said, we could also do slotted holes instead of like a cutout window.
Okay.
And that would keep some slotted aluminum material to make it stronger. You know, it's not going to be as strong as it was originally, but but very similar. You know,
pretty close. Yeah. So the idea we're thinking about in that skid plate, that angular skid plate on the front of the Hummer, mounting the transmission cooler back behind that, and then cutting some almost like grill-looking slots in there that allow air to pass through the skid plate to the transmission cooler, because there's no more room here to put it.
Yeah, it's basically too tight to kind of squeeze it back in here.
Yeah, and I guess eventually we're going to limit the amount of air that actually gets to the radiator.
Yeah, you will. Yeah, and you're also going to draw more heat into the cooling pack. You know, you're going to have the heat exchanger heat and then the transmission cooler heat. Now,
that's true.
Now there are factory cars that are built that way and it does work, but you are pulling more heat into it.
Right.
If we're trying to keep heat out of it, then we can move one source down and out. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get this tight, you kind of run into mounting transmission coolers with like the plastic strips and stuff. And I don't necessarily like that, because over time it can wear on the fins. Sure. And you can puncture either the radiator fin or a condenser fin. And either overheat or have no AC, one or two, you know.
Both are bad.
So I like to kind of solid mount it, and we tried not to use those if possible, you know.
Okay. I mean, I think the skid plate mount could really work, and I think the side mount could work, and those you'll figure it more out as you get going. And then so if we do, I know you're not in love with the transmission cooler I brought you, so if you put the other one, put it down here, do you want to use the one you recommend?
I think if it's center mounted, we could use the TrueCool 40K that we want to run on it, which is actually similar in size to this heat exchanger. It's almost the same dimensions, yes. It works extremely well.
I think we'd never have overheating transmission at that point.
We've used it on multiple, even our personal vehicles, and it's just amazing.
Really?
Yeah, it cools. There's not something that cools better. It's actually a factory cooler on the F-250s like you drive.
Is it really?
Yes. Yeah. They've been using that long version for a long time.
And then we would slot all the way across then?
Yes, yeah.
I'm kind of thinking that might be a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, considering the Tregular repull and all of the weight with the gear and everything, and being on trails, going slow, I think the more breathable, the better the transmission cooler, the better.
Yeah.
So.
And we're still going to keep the radiator in the transmission cooler circuit. Main reason being is it's good for a transmission to run cold, but not too cold. You also want it to run at normal temp or just below normal temp.
Right.
You know, you don't want it overheating, but it does need to stay up at a normal temp.
You know, all of the pulleys and all of this, that thing, it looks brand new. It looks great. You can see all of the new gear that came with this.
Yeah, we cleaned everything else. We did a new GM water pump in it. Crank pulley's been pinned for the Supercharger.
Okay.
These don't have a keyway from the factory, so they're real bad about they can spin the crank pulley on the crankshaft.
Okay.
And then what happens is you lose material and your crank pulley basically fall off.
Yeah.
So we pinned those. But yeah, everything cleaned up really nice. I mean, it was almost down to a short block basically because we had the pan off and did an oil pump, so you got the front cover and everything's
Right.
pretty much new. So
Right.
minus the pistons, rods, and bearings, it's pretty much rebuilt. You know.
Okay. Nice. And then we have catalytic converters around yet?
No, those
yet,
he's
okay.
getting ready to do those. We haven't got those in yet.
Okay.
That's going to be one of the next steps.
Okay. Perfect. Well, hopefully that'll be easy compared to the rest of the stuff you're having to figure out.
Yeah.
Perfect. This is one of the challenges we're facing here with the larger radiator and with the Supercharger. You can see where the air intake comes into the Supercharger and then the radiator hose comes out. There's not much room there. So, Jerry, you kind of have a plan with that one?
Basically, we kind of have to custom fab an upper radiator hose. We can either find an OE hose that works, or we may end up tubing a section of it, you know.
Okay.
We'll build like a tube, and then we'll put rolled edges on the tube.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
then it'll have clamps. But if you can't find a hose that makes all the correct bends in that short of distance, then you may have to use two different hoses and then merge them with a tube. You know,
Sure,
is
okay.
what we've had to do. So one of those two is going to work. I mean,
Yeah, because here we have to immediately take a 90 down, and then what do you say, next turn to get back
it's
around?
got to make a 90 and then another 90 and then go straight back and then make another 90.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's an S curve and a 90 on the other side. So.
All of it in like 10 inches.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tight. Well, that's why you guys are doing it, not me. So, so what else? What other challenges do we have? And oh, another thing we were talking about too, though. We're talking about the transmission gauge, transmission temp gauge.
Yeah.
So you have a plan for that?
Yeah, you were asking about some way to monitor transmission temp. One of our go-tos for that is an Aeroforce scan gauge.
Yeah.
Because your truck already monitors transmission temp anyways, so it's already being sent on the data lines through high speed, so that just picks it up and relays it, and then that scan gauge will give you the option to watch many other things too, and not just trans temp. You know.
Yeah.
You can also read DTCs on it.
Okay.
It's a great product, and they're not very expensive. And
Okay. Sold. Yeah, we'll do that for sure. That's. I think that's important, especially with everything we're doing on all of this, man. We don't want to end up. We ran temperature too hot in the transmission or something else.
Yeah.
And because this comes with just a warning light comes on.
Right.
It doesn't give you any warning until the light's on.
Right.
So it'd be nice
Yeah,
to
at
know
least
we're
if
creeping up.
you could monitor it, you could know that you're hot before that point.
Yes.
Because once the warning comes on, it's pretty hot.
Yeah.
So
Cool. So challenges of getting the winch on and everything figured out, but you guys are making great progress, man. I'm so excited. And anything else, like any other complications you foresee at this point?
no, nothing major. I mean, a lot of the major stuff is what we've already talked about. So it's not super abnormal. It's
Right.
kind of part of the performance world, fitting
Yeah.
stuff where it's not supposed to fit.
Right. Well, that's good. I mean, I'm glad because, and a little promo for you guys too, that you guys do all kinds of performance. It looks like, you do anything from, I'm just kind of looking around, but a lot of LS.
Yeah, we do tons of LS and LT, the newer LT.
Yep.
So we kind of specialize in GM, and we have for a long time.
Yep.
We're all ex-GM technicians,
Okay.
so that's kind of our specialty.
Sure.
It's where most of our knowledge is at. But we
Right.
do branch out a little bit into Ford and Chrysler.
Okay.
So we stay pretty much domestic for the most part.
So we're back at J&S, and there's been huge progress done here on the H3. It's running. It sounds amazing. We're not going to turn it on right now. You'll hear that in a bit. But with the new cam in it, I'm telling you, it sounds cool. It sounds like some cars that I used to know that used to drag race. A little bit. Not radical cam, but it's super cool. So what we've done now, we're kind of at a pause right now. The front's still taken apart. The hidden winch thing, the Schwartzy hidden winch and the Warren winch don't exactly fit with the like an intercooler, the charge air cooler for the Supercharger. So we're going to have to get a custom made fabricated bracket to make all that fit, and it looks like the guys here at the shop are saying it looks like that's going to work for us. So I'm getting dripped on. Sorry, it just snowed here, so now it's melting down my neck. But I want to show you guys the radio. I mean, it's all in here. We just had it running. Oh, it sounds so cool. So come take a look here. So we got the radiator. It's the twin fan radiator, and it's moving a lot of air. It sounds awesome. The Supercharger looks factory. I mean, it looks incredible. So the new heads are in. The valve covers, the guys here at this shop, man, they just cleaned up everything. So I came up and I'm like, are those the same valve covers? And you know, he told me, no, man, I cleaned them all up. Well, they look better than new. They look awesome. So we're super excited. We got something on the inside, in the interior, that we want to show you, but we're going to keep that as a surprise for just a couple more minutes. And when we do the final, when we pick this thing up and take it home, we'll show you what that is. But it's something really cool and super functional. Okay, so a little bit more in depth on the winch, because it mounts to the frame rails right here. So the struggle is with the new bracket. The bracket had to come forward to make room for essentially the intercooler for the Supercharger. So to make room for that cooler, the bracket had to come forward a little bit, leaving us no room for the winch and the bracket. So what we're going to do is get one of these fabricated, a new bracket here, and that's going to hold it all together, and the hood latch and everything will all be held together. But check this out down here. This is the transmission cooler, and we got a really slick customization that gets air to the transmission cooler here, and this thing is huge. But we want to make sure that this transmission stays cool and we don't have any problems. So this is a pretty slick upgrade. We're excited to get this thing on the road and see how it runs with the new engine work done. Man, and we still got more work that's going to be done on this thing at a different shop, another project that you'll have to check out next time. But so far so good. We're going to pick this thing up in just a couple days. We are really, really excited to get it on the road and see how it drives. All right, we're back at JNS. This is the day that we pick up our Hummer. It's not 100% complete, but this part of this project is done now, so we can get a couple other things done before we get the final tune on it. So let's get in. We're going to take a wrap up, go do a wrap up of everything that's been done on it, and show you guys and let you guys hear the finished product. Okay, so JR, what do we have right here, and what does it tell us?
So we talked about you wanting to monitor transmission temp. That transmission temp's already sent, you know, from the transmission. There's a TFP sensor in there. Yep. And that's already sent. So the ECM already receives it. We just need a way to read it. So basically, this Aero 4 scan gauge plugs into your DLC, reads the data line that the factory vehicle uses, and it sends a plethora of data. Basically, you can watch a ton of things that the ECM normally watches on a regular basis anyways.
Yeah, things that we'd normally just have like emergency or dummy lights kick on. Yeah. But now we actually can see numbers.
Yes.
And then right now you have it set for air intake, which is...
Yeah, I did air intake temp and the transmission temp. A lot of that's easy to change. You could go through and watch battery voltage, oil pressure, I mean all the way up to what gear you're in, mile an hour, RPM. I mean there's tons of data in this gauge.
Cool. Well, that's going to be fun for me to have to learn.
Yeah. And the gauge will allow you to clear DTCs too. You can actually check codes, clear them. All that's built into it.
Oh, and so we had the catalytic converter light was on here.
Yes. And so we replaced those.
Replaced those so that we're clear on.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, that's nice. I like having that, and that's the air intake after the intercooler.
Yes, after the supercharger.
After the supercharger. Yep. So that's actual air hitting the engine.
Yep.
Cool. That's really nice. And then I think really important having the transmission temperature. That's a big plus too. Well, cool. That looks really awesome. I love the way it is. And then ultimately we'll have it mounted where it's going to stay permanently, but I like where you have it now to get us by. Please forgive us here. The wind was much worse than we thought, and we didn't have our microphones windsock, so this part of the video is unusable. Once we do the final tune, get everything programmed, we'll have the guys at J&S talk over the final build, go over all of the details, and then tell you about their shop and how they can be reached. This is a list of all of the parts used in this build. There'll be some changes in the future, but right now this gets you caught up.